Hello, my name is Zach Gibbs, and I am a content developer within education services inside Juniper Networks. And today we will be going through the Paragon Active Assurance Multisession TCP Test Learning Byte. All right, so here in the topology for our Learning Byte, we have a few different devices I want to talk about. First, we have the test agents, TA1 and TA2. And with those test agents, they use ETH0 to connect to the management network, which then connects to the control center. And then ETH1 connects into the service provider core network, and we'll be using that interface to run our tests across. All right, so with that, what do we want to do? We want to configure a multi-session TCP test. And what is a multi-session TCP test, first of all? It's a task that generates point-to-point TCP traffic in the form of a specified number of parallel TCP sessions. And so by running the multi-session TCP task, you get insight into the performance in the form of available bandwidth of your network, and then hundreds of sessions will commonly be initiated when using things like peer-to-peer software or when browsing certain websites with many, many objects. And so this uses a standard cubic TCP implementation. And so the thing to keep in mind here is when the multi-session TCP task starts, the test agent we'll start with the selected number of TCP sessions, which in this case is going to be 20 connections. And I'll talk about that in a little bit. And so the thing to keep in mind there is that with the number of sessions that we're going to be using and with the task using all of the available bandwidth, you kind of got to be careful with this. If you're just doing a couple connections and you're running it for, say, like, I don't know, 60 seconds, like what we're doing here with this learning byte, then you might be okay with running this during production hours. But if you're doing hundreds of sessions, maybe you're running this for more than 60 seconds or whatever, you may want to do that after hours. So just keep that in mind as you do something like this or use this task. Okay, so with that, what do we want to do? We talked about using all available bandwidth. Duration is going to be 60 seconds. That's just the default. We're going to be using TA1 to TA2. We're going to have 20 connections. And so there'll be 20 connections going from TA1 to TA2. And 20 connections going from TA2 to TA1 because this is bidirectional, this task or this test that we're going to be setting up. And we're going to use port 5000, which is also the default. And then the error seconds thresholds. We want to make sure that we at least have 15 connections that are in the up and down direction. If we drop below that, then we're going to have some error seconds. 100 megabits per second up and down as well. So 100 megabits per second at least from TA1 to TA2 and TA2 to TA1. Or we're going to have some error seconds. And then we'll run the test and examine the results. So with that, let's go ahead and jump to the Paragon Active Assurance Control Center web interface and get this going. All right, so here is the Paragon Active Assurance Control Center web interface. And let's go to the test section and select the new test sequence option. And we'll name this, we'll call this Multi-Session TCP LB, short for learning byte, of course. And then we need to select the multi-session TCP task. And notice how this is a puzzle piece task. And so we're able to add other puzzle piece tasks in parallel. So keep that in mind. We could do that, have other tasks run at the same time in the same step. Just something to keep in mind. Okay, so the duration, default set to 60 seconds. So we're good there. Fail threshold, didn't specify that, but we're fine with the default of 0 seconds. We don't need to wait for the task to be ready. We're just going to run it as soon as possible. And then in the general section, we specify the server, which in this case, we're going to select TA1, and we're going to select ETH1 of TA1. That's very important that you select the right interface, or things aren't going to work out as planned. And then we select TA2 ETH1. And so this will be the interface that the test is being ran out of on both devices. Port 5000, the default is fine. We want to set the connections to 20. And set the direction to bidirectional. Now, if we set it to down, that would be the server sending traffic to the client. We set it to up, it would be the client sending traffic to the server. And so that's how that works. But with this, we're going to be setting it in both directions at the same time. And then the threshold for error seconds. Remember that we need to set this to 15 connections in the down direction and 15 connections in the up direction. And then 100 megabits per second in the down rate direction, and 100 seconds for the rate for the up direction. And then under advanced, we can set the delayed start, but that's not necessary for what we're doing. And so with that, let's go ahead and click start and see how this works out. And with any test, it takes just a minute to start. And so while that's waiting, let's go ahead and talk about what we see here. We see the 2 different sessions, and look at that. It's already started. And we can see here the rate. We're using one direction, we're using 477 megabits per second, the other direction, 449 megabits per second. So we're using all the available bandwidth. Now, that's very important. If you have critical applications running during the day, when you have business going, you don't want to be doing this. And so, yeah, and this is only 60 seconds, so it might interrupt operations, but it would be for a minimal amount of time. We can see we have 20 connections connected on both streams, and we have 20 connections that are active. And so with our error seconds thresholds, you can see we're completely green here. We're not getting any error seconds. And the reason behind that is because we're staying above 100 megabits per second for both streams, and the active connections for both streams is 20, which is above 15 streams, or 15 connections, that is. And so everything looks good there. So this test is going to finish off without any error seconds. And if there were error seconds, you'd see here with the error second history, you'd see some different statistics here. And then, of course, you can click on the individual streams. And here we can see what happened throughout the whole test. We can see the rate for this stream. Now, this stream is TA1 to TA2. It's that direction. And you can see here that we have the rate. Everything looks good. No error seconds. That looks great. Now we can look at the table. And this is empty by default because it only shows errors by default. So we click show all, and we can see what happened every second. And remember that with tests, the resolution window is every second. So we're going to get data every second. Whereas with monitors, it's every 10 seconds. And you can see here the individual data. We see we had no error seconds, so things look good. And if we select the other stream, that is TA2 to TA1, you see the same thing. There's nothing really different here, maybe slightly different bit rate than what we had on the other side, or rather with the other stream. And everything looks good, no error seconds. We can look at the table and we can see those individual statistics per second and see how things look. And so this is great. This is what you want to see. We don't have any error seconds. Things are working perfect. So that does bring us to the end of this Learning Byte. And in this Learning Byte, we demonstrated how to configure and run a multi-session TCP test. So as always, thanks for watching.
Visit the Juniper Education Services website to learn more about courses. View our full range of classroom, online, and e-learning courses. Learning paths, industry segment and technology-specific training paths. Juniper Networks Certification Program, the ultimate demonstration of your competence. And the training community, from forums to social media. Join the discussion.